Good morning. Welcome to the first session on the service management track today. The session today is presented by Zaid and Rashita, who, due to a technical mix-up, are in the US, and it's around 5 a.m. So we should be very grateful for them for doing this. And I'll leave them to introduce themselves in a moment. If you have any questions, because you're all muted, if you would be so kind as to pop them in the chat, and then I will break in if it's appropriate and allow you to ask the question. At the end, I will allow everyone to unmute themselves for a conversation. Okay, so over to you guys, and introduce yourselves.
Yeah, thank you, Anna. Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Zaid Alatar. I'm a SysView engineer here with Broadcom. I have about 13 years of zOS experience. I spent the first 8 in zOS storage and the last 5 here with SysView on performance monitoring. I'm here with my colleague, Rachita. Rachita, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Zaid. So hello, everyone. Welcome to our session. I'm Rachita, a proud SysView product owner. I have been in the technical side, initially joined as a programmer, as a mainframe programmer, spent about 5 years, initial 5 years, and then the rest of the 10 years in the product management. So now with Broadcom. So we'll get started. I just want, looking at the slide, and as we celebrate the diamond anniversary of digital dominance mainframe 60, it never ceased to amaze me the incredible processing power of modern mainframes. These powerful systems can handle over 1 million transactions per second. And just to put that in the context, consider that Amazon's daily transaction, and based off of US, I'm thinking the US average is around 12 million transactions on a daily basis, and a modern mainframe can process all of the Amazon's daily transaction in just about 12 seconds. It's amazing. So today we'll talk about, for 45 some minutes we have, we'll start with our overview of SysView performance management. We'll talk monitoring capability. Most of our time, the bulk we'll spend on SysView apps conditions, and give a sneak peek of what's coming for the road ahead. SysView performance management, the product that has stood the test of time. It's been in the market for decades now. The key market problem that SysView addresses through its offerings are modern management and monitoring. So monitoring and maintaining the mainframe can require significant manual interventions because of the hybrid IT environment, especially when the teams are trapped for time. SysView is a powerful tool that can be leveraged to increase the efficiency and improve your system performance. We achieve this goal by first anticipating issues sooner, analyzing them faster, and automating corrective action. The next key capability is software risk management. Our customer research suggests that systems programmers need information about maintenance, product life cycle, licensing, key rings, and certificates for the mainframe products that are installed on their site. This information comes very handy to identify risks, such as risk of mainframe software vendors nearing or at their end of service or end of life, risk of Broadcom mainframe software products with expired or soon to expire license keys, and risk of expired certificates. If we all know that information and it's in front of us, then we can take the appropriate action at the right time and mitigate all these risks. Application performance insights. So SysView provides mainframe data to DX application performance management, which we mostly refer as DX APM for short, for comprehensive application performance monitoring. It offers a complete view of business transaction across application workflows, helping you monitor mainframe health in a hybrid IT environment. This SysView ecosystem is very well integrated. We not only provide access to the right data across many systems and subsystems, and as you see to the right, you can see all these subsystems, CICS, IMS, MQ, and so on. But we also turn your data into meaningful and actionable insights that help you better understand what is going on across your hybrid IT environment. Online access to historical data. So with SysView, you can access historical data such as SysView log streams or SMF records on our commands like ctran log, IMS log, or we have a Vantage Web UI, so you can access the same commands on that. If you have if you know about machine learning, then we have this machine learning insights, and SysView provides the time series data, DSD data, to these ML insights for generating a ML highway. And you can access that on there. We have the report writer batch reporting against SysView historical data. Last but not least, we have JES and job output management. SysView offers tools to monitor batch jobs running on zOS. And recently we published batch reports and utilities Brutus. This is one of our very popular features since we have published. This allows you to invoke in-context batch data and utilities, enabling efficient and reliable execution of recurring batch jobs while continuing to work within the SysView session. Given the vast offering, we have several key players, or you can say primary personas. We have system operator, our traditional system programmer, performance analyst, the next gen new to mainframe sysprog. And each of these personas has their own set of goals to achieve. And to achieve those goals, they take advantage of all these capabilities they may take advantage of. Depending on which area they're operating from, they can take advantage of this one or more capabilities. The next is the Broadcom's Watchtower platform. Now, this is our Broadcom's observability platform. This brings all of the core products metrics into a single location, simplifying monitoring, alerting, and troubleshooting for operations and SMEs alike. So you will see in the bottom, we have SysView. It utilizes many of the Watchtower capabilities. And in today's session, my colleague will briefly touch upon Alert Insights. It is a centralized alerting mechanism with additional relevant in-context data, which helps you solve issues quicker. Next is our SysView monitoring capability. Our extensive customer research indicates that our primary personas basically focus folks like probably one of you, or probably the folks that you work with are these personas. They have said that they aim to monitor and control their mainframe environments. And we also have often heard from the key players that they need ability to set threshold. It could be simple, it could be complex on zOS mainframe data for effective software monitoring. And this functionality is crucial for optimizing operations and highlights the need for exception processing on the zOS mainframe. To address these challenges, SysView offers quite a few monitoring tools out of box, and all of this are supported. Before I go into the monitoring tools, generally speaking, we may not collect data for all the display metrics in native SysView. However, we have an access to an impressive about 1,600 metrics that can serve as rules. And this number seems modest when you compare it to like what we display. It's about 20,000, over 20,000 display data points across thousands of commands. So the first one, the direct request to monitor a new metrics. Now let's say you are using SysView and you have a specific need to monitor a metric that isn't natively tracked. So we entertain such requests. We have our channel through community ideations. Our users and very vocal customers submit enhancement requests through that. And once they have submitted, we evaluate those requests. And if it aligns with product goals, we implement data collection for threshold processing and actionable items. Next is system condition monitor. Now this execute Rex execs it's called intelligent modules, IMOD, which execute SysView commands using the SysView Rex API. The last one in this historic monitoring tool is utilize TOD rules in ops MVS to schedule and execute Rex rules that use the SysView Rex API. So you can trigger the rules in using the ops MVS, and then you can generate alerts off of that. The SCM and the TOD rules, they come with a few limitations. We have customers that have to write and maintain the Rex code, and this limited exception processing actions and notification capabilities. So they have these limitations, and that's why we came up with SysView apps conditions. And that is our latest tool, and for which I will pass the baton to my colleague Zaid.
Yeah, thank you, Raja. Can you go to the next slide, please? So I would like to start off with a use case. I'm sure you've experienced this situation before, where an enterprise application or your user session under USS runs out of USS file system storage. I've been there many times. And the way I would go about this is, I investigate, okay, what's the file system name? And then try and fix the issue. So in this case, to determine, which file system I'm dealing with and what's their capacities, I may issue the sysview uFilesys command. So the uFilesys is a command that will display all the mounted file systems on a given zOS system. And here, I'm just filtering on ZFSs that start with filesys. And as you can see here on the display, there's 7 file systems. Looking at the used column, right? So this tells me the formatted percentage of a ZFS. And I can see some of them are pretty high, right? There are a few there's a couple in the 90% used and one in the 100. But that doesn't tell you everything, right? Because with the ZFS, you can add more extents, and that used will actually decrease. But there's other fields here that will tell me why I'm out of space, right? So the volume count for a single volume ZFS, like all these are, I can look at the extent count, right? And the maximum extent count for a ZFS is 123 extents on a volume. So I can see that the filesys 7 is at a maximum capacity. Now, what I would do in this situation is, I allocate a larger ZFS and copy my content to that ZFS and mount it. But that's after the fact, after I've experienced the issue, the outer space issue. Next time I want to be proactive. I want to detect this condition before it occurs on my system and affects my applications or my user experience. So it would be nice if, looking at these fields, I can say if the use percentage is greater than 95% and the volume count is 1 and the number of extents is 120 extents, issue an alert. How can I do that? Well, before, as Rachel mentioned, you had to write rec script to detect this type of condition. That's where sysview conditions come in to make this a lot easier. And I want you to think about not just this example of your file sys, but any sysview display that you use in your daily job. So any display, any set of fields that you see, sysview conditions will allow you to monitor and alert on those conditions. Next slide, please. What is sysview conditions? So it is a web application that will run inside the sysview application server address space, what we call sysview apps. And it's an extension to sysview's existing thresholding capability. As Rachel highlighted, sysview already has existing thresholding capabilities. You may be familiar with the rules command, the metrics command. This provides an extension to that. So with the rules, we have about 1,800 metrics, but that's not everything that sysview can extract and display. There's about 20,000 data points that you can see on a given sysview, across all sysview commands and displays. And that's where conditions come in to allow you to monitor any of those 20,000 fields across the 1,000 sysview commands that sysview has. You'll be able to generate different levels of alerting. So you can set up multiple levels of thresholds in a given rule where you can generate an info, warning, minor, major, or critical severity alert based on the situation that you're dealing with. And sysview conditions has a similar pattern in terms of scheduling a rule, collecting the data, and generating alerts. So if you're already familiar with sysview rules, these concepts that we're going to talk about should not be foreign to you. You should be familiar with those. Next slide, please. So from an architecture perspective, and this is from a very high level, on the right-hand side, this is zOS, and with sysview, you have the sysview main address space, which is not shown here. You have the sysview user address space, and where the REST API is, the sysview application server address space, this is where conditions will reside. So it's within the sysview apps address space. If you have the REST API, the sysview REST API today, that means you have sysview apps up and running. Next slide, please. This is sysview conditions and sysview applications will reside in that same address space. We're not adding a new address space. The capability that I'm going to show today will be achieved by applying a feature PTF and restarting the sysview apps address space. And as a user, you will interact with conditions through your web browser. Next slide, please. So once you have the feature PTF applied and sysview apps configured, this is a sample screenshot of the homepage from your web browser. So you'll navigate to host name and port, and you will be presented with this web page. On the left-hand side, you'll see there is conditions, alerts, collectors, system groups, and schedules, and these are your main pages for this application. And we'll talk about each one of these here in the next slide. Conditions. Think of conditions as the rules in SysView today. So it's an interface that will let you build complex monitoring rules against any of the data fields that you could see on a SysView display. So it's the rule that you will create to determine what constitutes an alert for you. And when a condition is met, you will generate an alert, and that will be shown in the alerts display there. Collectors. If you're familiar with data collection in SysView today, right? So this should be the same idea. It's a way to go gather the data so that we can evaluate it in a condition and generate an alert. System groups and system is similar to the notion of groups in SysView today. It's a logical set of system groups that you can assign to a collector so that you can say, I want this collector to run on 10 systems within my sysplex, so that you don't have to go define collector on all these 10 systems. So you can define it once and have it run on X number of systems in the sysplex. Schedules, this one is self-explanatory. You can define a schedule on which a collector will run, which then drives the condition to evaluate. We provide custom, we provide out-of-the-box schedules, and you can define your own custom schedules based on your needs. Back to the use case. So here I want to be proactive and monitor the condition where if the used column has a specific value with volume count and the number of extents, so that I can generate an alert and take action before the out-of-space condition occurs. So I want you to pay attention to the three columns: the used, the volume count, and the extents column. And then the command there was uFilesys name, and then I have filter there for the for file systems starting with filesys. And the extended keyword allows us to go count the number of extents for each data set, because by default, we don't do that. So next slide, please. So navigating to the SysView conditions UI, I'll have an option to create a new data collector. In this case, the data I want to collect is from that uFilesys command. So I'll be able to enter the uFilesys command, just we saw it on the previous display. And I'll be able to select the columns that I'm interested in. And in this case, I had selected used, volume count, and extents, because these are the fields that I want to monitor from this uFilesys display. And here, if you scroll back, please. See, there's a lot of columns on the display, and there's a horizontal scroll bar. So you can scroll to the right and select these fields or any field from this specific display. In this case, we only needed 3, so that's what we selected. And then the way to create a collector is through a wizard. So this wizard will drive you through the process of creating a collector. So you would give it a name, description. This is where the concept of system group comes in, right? So I'm creating this collector to gather the uFilesys information. And I may want to have this collector run on multiple systems in my sysplex. So you could define a group that's called pre-production, right? Maybe you're trying this out after the presentation today, and you don't want to run this on your production environment. So you define a group that has your pre-production systems, for example, assign this collector to that group, and then you can select a schedule on which this collector runs. We have a schedule that's called 24/7 every minute, which means every minute of every day, this collector will go gather the data. Next slide, please. You save the collector. Now you want to define the condition. And in this case, I want to be alerted if the value of used percentage is greater than 95, and the volume count is 1, and the number of extents is greater than 120. So you see, here we have, it's a complex rule. There's 3 fields that I'm evaluating. And you can have ands and ors. You can have as many data fields as you want from a display, and you can have all variety of groupings. What I mean by that is you can have parentheses around a set of expressions so that these expressions evaluate first before your next expression. This can be a complex rule that can be tailored to your specific needs. So this is the rule template. Next slide, please.
Yeah, I don't know if you show, but in future slides, but we have the auto suggest feature. So even if it's a complex template, so we will give you a type ahead. We'll give you some suggestions that could come very handy as you create these rules.
Yeah, thanks, Rachel. That's a very good point. You don't need to memorize the syntax, right?
Yeah.
You don't need to go look up a manual or anything like that. All that capability will be provided in the UI. Yeah, thanks for that. So I may be interested in having 3 levels of alerting. As I mentioned earlier, maybe when my ZFS reaches 90% or above, I want to have an informational type alert message. This is more, hey, FYI, we are reaching an 80, sorry, it was a 90 extent allocation. And when it reaches 100 extents allocated on the volume, I want to get a warning. And maybe when it reaches 120 extents on a given volume, that's a critical alert because I only have 3 extents to grow on a given volume before I get an out of space condition. So how do I set that up in my rule? Next slide, please. So starting from the bottom, right? The rule that we typed in became a template, and now I can change any of the values I want. In this case, I'm changing the extent count. So if the extent count is greater than 90, that's an informational. You see the tab, you'll get 5 tabs there to choose from. On the informational tab, my threshold is 90. On the warning tab, the threshold is 100. On the critical tab, the threshold is 120. And all these rules are within a single condition. Then the wizard will drive me through the process of naming this condition and giving a description. Once it's saved, and the data collector runs on that 1-minute interval that we had talked about, it will evaluate all my file systems that got collected. And if any of them meet the condition and the rules within the condition, then I would receive alerts. The alerts page will show you all the active alerts on your system, the system that you're logged into. We also integrate with Alert Insights. So if you have Watchtower, we can send the alerts to Alert Insights, and this is where you will get history of alerts over time. We issue a WTO message and or an ops event. And for these two, this will allow you to have automation in place to pick up the alert and take actions. And this is really what you want to do, because getting an alert is not sufficient. You got the alert, but you want to take actions to mitigate or remediate the issue before it happens. Next slide, please.
Yeah, just quickly mention that it's optional. Like if suppose if you don't have Watchtower Alert Insights, it's optional. You can just direct the alerts to one of these places that you would like.
Yeah, exactly. And in fact, you can direct it to none of these, right? So maybe you're experimenting, to test a condition before you issue a message to the WTO or an ops event or alert insights. So you can choose to not send to any of these three. And then the alert will only show up on your alert display, or sorry, alert page in the web UI.
That's a good point. Yep.
The alert text that gets generated is similar to the alert messages that you get out of SysView today. There's a specific pattern to them. So you'll have a message ID that starts with GSV $sign. There's what we call resource class that tells you what this resource was. In this case, it was a USS file system. And then we give a resource ID, which tells you which system it came from. In this case, it was sys1, and then the resource name. It's file sys, onvs1.zfs, for example. And then the levels of alerting. So in this case, the alert for this resource went from an informational level to a warning level, and then we'll tell you the condition that it came from. And the purpose of this is so that you can have automation in place to extract those specific fields and then take actions based on the alert that got generated. And all this is documented in the Broadcom tech docs for SysView specifically. Next slide, please. That's all for the web UI part of conditions. There's how to create a schedule, how to create a system group. I didn't go over that. There are steps in the wizard that I didn't cover, but this gives you a kind of a high-level overview of what the web UI looks like. We've had requests from some of our customers, hey, can I see conditions or the alerts that are generated from conditions from the SysView 3270 interface? And based on those requests, we added that capability. There's 5 new SysView commands that will allow you to see the defined conditions, collectors, system groups, and schedules from 3270. So if you issue the app conditions command, you will see all the defined conditions in SysView apps. You can see all the active alerts, so on and so forth. And what this allows you to do is, not having to go to the UI to see what's going on in SysView apps. You can see that from the 3270 interface. Now we cannot define a new condition or a new collector from here, but you can at least view what you have defined. And there's an asterisk there. Sorry, Rachita. This capability requires this SysView JVM agent to be installed in the SysView apps, so that's just something to be aware of. Next slide. Now, how do you get conditions? As I mentioned earlier, it's a feature PTF that you apply, and this is the feature PTF number that introduced conditions. There's been a few maintenance PTFs since. So here the one we have is LU14174. You don't need to write this down or remember it. I believe the slides will be available for you later. Now, as far as software requirements, we require SysView 17, the non-essentials configuration of SysView. CSV apps can run on Java 8 or Xamarin 11 or 17, and it can run on zOS 2.4, 2.5, and 3.1. We do have a prerequisite for the IBM EasyNoSQL capability, which requires vSAM RLS. And this is the IBM APAR that introduces EasyNoSQL. So you have to have the PTFs for those APARs applied on your system. Next slide, please. There were some issues that we discovered during development with EasyNoSQL, and there's a set of APARs that we highly recommend that you have applied before running CSV apps. Otherwise, you might encounter some issues in the address space, and these are those of APARs that you need to have the PTFs applied for. As far as configuring conditions, if you have CSV apps today with the REST API, you may be familiar with the application.yaml file that you have to configure. Enabling conditions will be as simple as enabling the ability in the application.yaml. So there's a new property called conditions.enabled, and you just set that to true. And then when you set that to true, you need to define a storage area for us to store those definitions. And those storage attributes are for us to allocate vSAM data sets to store that information in, and that's where the vSAM RLS requirement comes in. From a high-level architecture perspective, so here we're looking at a sysplex called Plex 1 with two systems, System A on the left-hand side and System B on the right. Don't worry too much about the boxes inside each system, but you can have CSV apps running on each system. Both are connected to the same vSAM database through vSAM RLS. And if you access the web UI of System A and define collectors there, those collectors and conditions can be shared across the sysplex. So System B will have access to those definitions as well. And if you say, I want to run collector on a group that contains System A and System B, then both systems will run that collector and run those conditions as well. And you can access either system's UI, and you can see similar information. The definitions will be shared. And thus the vSAM RLS requirement. Next slide, please. Everything I talked about and a lot more details are documented in our tech docs. Here I have a screenshot of that. And I believe I have links in the next slide. So I'm going to pause here for you to write all this down. I'm kidding. The slides will be available. These are just direct links to get you started quickly. We also have a blog that we wrote that goes over an example similar to the one I covered earlier. So check that out. Next slide. That's all for me. We'll turn it back to Rachel. If you have questions, post them in the chat, please.
Yep, post them in the chat, or and if they would, if any of the folks would want to come from unmute, we could do that. As my colleague mentioned, that SysView Conditions has been on the market for a little over a year. 1st of March of last year, we released it. We continue to enhance the user experience to make it the best that we can offer for our users. So a little bit of road ahead we wanted to share with this group. We have some guided workflow enhancement, and I'll give you a sneak peek to that in a minute. The next we'll have a single system support. Now, this configuration, if you were paying attention earlier, there's a quiz after this. Um, my colleague showed that there is a vSAM RLS requirement for configuration. So with single system support configuration enhancement, we will allow users to configure the condition on a standalone system or a single system. Thereby, we are removing the requirement for vSAM RLS, because we heard from some of our active customers and users that in their production, it's all fine, but in their dev or their sandbox, they don't have vSAM RLS. So we are like, okay, we will remove this limitation so you can play with it. Let's see, you want to set conditions, how it would look like, how would the alerts look like, get familiar with it. So we want to make it as easy as possible for you guys to configure this application. And something else we would have in future is we were thinking around externalizing data. We're still doing some of the customer research to better understand the need of from the customer. Now, this is a guided workflow enhancement. This is a sneak peek. Some of this might change as we go GA in a month or two. But what you're looking at is a mock-up of, it's called guided workflow. This provides like modern experiences that preserve and augment the mainframe. And guided workflow, as one would expect, is a set of interactive patterns providing step-by-step guidance for like faster task completion. So if you're familiar with the wizard kind of concept, there will be subsequent panels that will be displayed and you can perform tasks without the need to do a context switch and refer to the tech docs. How do we do this? How do we do that? So our users have said they want to quickly learn how to set some of the complex exception rules using conditions. The other subject matter expertise would like to see be informed that what new product features that have been available. So we will quickly make those available on the conditioned app itself. And it's not difficult to understand. So it's a very short learning curve. That's all we have. Do we have any questions? Anything more? We can share the slide and then that would be made available as well.
Thank you. I have allowed anyone to unmute themselves if they wish to ask any questions or have a conversation with Rashida or Zaid. If not, I'm not seeing anybody unmuting. If not, then it just remains for me to thank them both for joining us on this session at some ungodly hour where they are, and also ask you to complete the feedback so we can see if sessions in this topic are useful to you. But yeah, it doesn't look like anybody has any questions, so I would just like to, as I said, thank you for presenting this morning.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thanks, Anna, and thanks everyone for joining.